Welcome to another episode of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. Again this week I dig deep into my own encounter reports to bring yet another intense run-in with the hairy ones of the forest. Grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. It was the summer I turned 13, and I was visiting family on the Cherokee Reservation in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. With me being a half-breed, it made things difficult at times to be included with the tribe for ceremonies and the like, but this time it was different. Grandmother had arranged for me to spend the entire summer with the tribe. It was time I learned the native ways. So I packed up my woods gear and got shipped off to the reservation to become a man. Things got interesting very quickly as we went from being treated as youngsters and the elders began to treat us as men. This included the laws of the hairy ones that governed us to use the forest lands. We were told stories of the hairy man from time to time, and that was when we were small children. Tales of how when children and women would venture too far from the campfires, they were grabbed and taken, never to be seen again by those that lurked behind the trees. The boogeyman type stories, but based in some feeling of truth and told to protect the tribe, but this was different. It was explained that taking more than is needed from the land, be it resources for huts, camps, or food, for more than you can feed, the hairy ones will make you answer for it in ways you may not enjoy. I must admit my Cherokee has never been the greatest, and much of the stories that were told I had to get secondhand afterwards. I was sure I caught the meaning, but none of us younger ones took it literally, more like traditional tales as to why it's important to manage the land and food within. But oh, how we were wrong. We were sent out by twos for 3 days into the woods to set up camp, hunt, and fish for food, and show that you've learned enough to survive. I was lucky my cousin John Standing Deer, my older cousin by a year, was chosen to be my partner, and he was a bona fide badass, defending his mother from a wolf at the age of 10. It was his claim to fame, and his bravery was never in question. John and I set off for our quest the first light on day one. He insisted we travel nearly 15 miles before we even thought about choosing a camp, as that was where the best fishing was. All we were allowed to take with us was a hatchet, a fixed blade knife each, and a cane pole for fishing. The rest we would have to fend for ourselves. The hike was very uneventful as John actually knew the way. He had made this journey often with the tribe members. At one point he stopped and looked behind us when we changed directions several times, thinking that we had been followed by someone. But we continued on to our destination. We arrived at mid-afternoon, and we chose a camp location near a freshwater brook that seemed to be jumping with life. John and I cut some lean-to poles from the surroundings and constructed a shelter before the sun went down. Shortly after, we made our way over to the river's edge and dug for some fishing bait and started to fish into the evening. Just about dark, John had me go back to camp and get the fire started. I started to get an uneasy feeling. I had found a flint rock down by the brook, so I struck it against the blade of the knife and got the fire to take spark. As the firelight started to pick up, I swear I saw something cover its eyes and then move into the dark. It surprised me at first, but I quickly dismissed it as imagination. Just then, John returned with the fish we had caught. They were cleaned and ready to be cooked. He set up the fire to cook on, and we fire roasted the fish to feast on. We sat around the fire, eating our fish and telling stories of our lives as kids. We'll often do when they heard what sounded like a sigh come from the forest behind our position. We looked at each other and took note of it, but without a flash of light, there wasn't much hope of seeing into the darkness. We laid back looking at the Milky Way, pointing out constellations and finding pictures in the clouds, when I saw it stand up. A shadowy figure just out of the firelight had risen on 2 legs and was staring directly into our camp. I looked over at John and quietly mentioned what I saw. He looked at me in disbelief, yet he knew me not to tell untruths, so he slowly rolled over and began to get a better look. It seemed the moment that we moved, all the shadows stepped back into the darkness and it was gone from sight. John and I set up 2 more fire rings to create a triangle around our shelter and to illuminate as much of our surroundings as we could, yet nothing seemed to move. The oddest thing was, there were no sounds at all. Not a creature, not a bird, not a cricket. We could hear the brook and nothing else. No owls, nothing but total silence. Soon after, the sun rose and we walked over to where I had seen the figure, and sure enough, the ground was disturbed and there was a small rock stack right there where I had seen the shadow rise up. John then said it must have been a hairy one, and we shouldn't be worried as the stack approved of what he saw. We went about our day setting up a small game snares and improving our camp with water trenches and creating our own powwow area, as we called it. Soon, half the day was gone, and it was time to prepare for the night once again. So we collected and stacked enough wood for the night and began to check our traps. We had been very lucky, and 3 of the traps had been tripped. 2 cottontails and a gray squirrel. Boy, it would be a feast tonight. We didn't reset the traps as we'd be leaving in the morning, and we took our catch back to camp. We only had a center fire burning at this point, and John had gutted and skinned the animals, but instead of burning the organs, he placed them near the tree as an offering for our visitor from the night before. We sat and ate well into the night, even putting some of the cottontail meat onto a stick to dry for the journey home. It seemed late into the night when we heard footsteps approaching our camp. They seemed to stop, and John called out and welcomed whoever it was in Cherokee, but we heard no response. We let the fire die down a bit, and our guests came closer. It sounded as if they plopped right down in the leaves just outside of camp. We could hear it breathing. Every once in a while, a low whoop would come sounding from the darkness. John and I sat quietly watching the shadows from where the sounds were coming. All night long, it was plain our visitor was with us. At one point, a pine cone arched up into camp, as if to say thanks for the food. Just as first light appeared on the horizon, we heard it get up. It stood there motionless for what seemed like forever, and then with just enough light, we could make out our guest. 8 feet tall, as wide as a moose, arms reaching high into the tree it was standing under and grasping a branch as it's staring back at us. Covered in hair, a face much like a man, yet somehow more animal-like. Thinning at the waist, big powerful legs with forward-facing knees and almost a smirk on its face. It released the tree branch, which sprung back up at least 2 feet, turned towards the side, and what seemed like 3 steps, it was gone from sight once again. We both stood there in amazement as the hairy one had revealed himself to us. It was difficult to think about what we were supposed to do next. As per tradition, the elders would have sent out the best trackers to find us by now, and they wouldn't have long to go before they were able to inspect our camp and hear the time of our quest. We quickly checked out the snares once again to find 2 more rabbit. We skinned and prepared the meat for the trackers' arrival as good hosts should, and awaited them to come. Sure enough, within 3 hours, the tribe trackers had found us, and they were well impressed with our camp. We sat by the fire eating rabbit, and John brought up our hairy visitor. The trackers were impressed with the claim in which we recounted the details of his visits. Matt Flying Crow, the leader tracker, said he had found some tracks of the shadow lurkers on his way to find us. They were not more than 2 miles from here, and that was the clue that gave him the direction to find us, as we had done a very good job in covering our movements. The 5 of us covered up the camp and returned it to as near as untouched as we could, grabbed up our rabbit furs, and headed back to the village. Along the trail, Matt had shown us the tracks he had found on the way in. At least 19 inches long and half as wide as the heel, 5 toes on each foot, and 2 tracks, not 4. We returned to the village far after nightfall, and we were taken to the elders first thing. John and I told the tales of our quest and presented the skins to the elders, and then we were told that the visit came from the hairy ones. The elders explained that we were in the midst of the forest, and the forest was pleased so much so, the hairy ones blessed our quest, and we should be thankful, but we should keep this tale of the hairy ones close to our hearts, as it was intended only for us. After that summer, John and I had a few chances to get back up to the brook and camp of our youth. We spent many nights fishing the same waters as we had that weekend, but we've never seen the hairy giants again. I've only spoken to this of a few people that I trust. I just feel that it was time the people know the truth. These young natives found peace and reassurance in their quest to become men. Tales from the native people of the Americas go back much further than the stories of 1958. To them, these beings are part of their history. To me, it was another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.